Hello and welcome to another Game Dev Diary. Today we're looking at elevation, tools, and blocks. So let's get started. I put dirt, wood, stone, and then we have shovel, axe, and pickaxe to go with those. So I've cleaned up the fan out here a little bit. It's closer to the ability bar, and now when you click on it, by default you're selecting something. Before you would have to know that you had to drag. So that's a nice little improvement. And whenever you mouse over one of the items, it changes what abilities are visible. So you can see all the items that are, or all the abilities associated with that item. So let's place a block. You see that placing the stone block there in that pool displaces some of the water. You also see the backpack has a pretty nice animation now. If I place this object there and we walk over it, it zooms right into the backpack. So picking up where we left off last time with water, let's watch how it flows if we break this side of the pool here. So I've done a lot of work with how the water looks with this new blocky elevation. And you can see the water line kind of rising on the cliff there as more water flows into this trench. So just like in other games, you have to use a pickaxe to break stone, you use an axe to break wood, and you use a shovel to break dirt. There you go. And if a block is stacked too high, you have the option of poking at it rather than trying to get on top of it to break it. So the shovel, you can kind of stab with it, and you can use that to knock enemies away from you too. It's not a very effective weapon, but it can be used like a weapon. So, but now that the block isn't too high, you just end up poking over it. But we can click on it and break it that way. And that works with the pickaxe and the axe as well. So the goal for this update was to make the world feel less flat. So I plan on using lighting, vision, drop shadows, pathing, water simulation, all to create the illusion of the world that isn't flat when it actually is. And the reason I want a flat world, there's various reasons. I want MOBA style combat like League of Legends or Dota. I want to do a massive simulation, which I think would be more performant if it's flat rather than a 3D world. And if you have a 3D world with a top-down camera, it gets messy, and the player's just probably going to be yearning to have a first-person camera, and it's just a slippery slope into turning it into a first-person game, and that's not what I want to do. So I'm trying to make it flat, but not feel flat. So this is a world where you can change the terrain, you can dig, you can build. So how do we keep the world flat when you have this creative freedom? Well, the answer is there's some rules about what you can and can't do, and they can seem a little awkward at first. So the first rule is you can only break surface blocks. You can't dig tunnels sideways, underneath the dirt or something like that. This doesn't mean that there won't be caving, but you'll find caves in the field, and then you'll go into them, explore them, and that kind of thing. You won't be strip mining. The second rule is you can't place blocks more than too high. So if you try here, it says too steep. And the same goes for digging. If you try to dig too deep, it'll say too steep. Now this doesn't mean that the max height is 2. That just means that the delta between a block and the blocks that are adjacent to it can only be 2. So here I've placed dirt around this block here, and now it can go higher again. So you have to do sort of like a pyramid style building, and this is just so that things don't get so tall that you wouldn't be able to see the characters that are behind them. So there's no limit to how high or how low, no practical limit. Each cell can go, you just have to follow the elevation rules. But to make that practical memory wise, you can't place dirt on top of other blocks. And if you're using other blocks other than dirt, you can only place up to 2 of them in a cell. So we can place wood and then stone on top of it, and you can see those 2 layers here, or we can do it the other way around. You see wood on top of stone, but then we can't place dirt on top of that, or just throw that down there. We can't place dirt on top of that, and you can't place more than 2 non-dirt blocks in a single cell. So there I have 2 of them. I try to place a third and it says too many non-dirt blocks. And that seems kind of awkward, but basically what it is the dirt can go however high or low, and then you can have 2 blocks that represent the surface. So again, I don't want this game to be about digging. You're not strip mining or anything like that. So I don't think these rules will be too onerous. So here's a tricky scenario. Let's say you want to put wood flooring into this little house that we've started here. Each of these blocks is already 2 higher than their neighbors. So if we were to try to dig here, we wouldn't be able to go one further down. And this would have created a really painful situation where you have to kind of tear the wall down before you can tear the floor up, put the floor blocks in, and then build the wall back up. And that would be really tedious. So that's the whole purpose behind these partially broken blocks. You see, I partially broke that by digging there. If I try to dig there again, it'll tell me it's too steep. But in its partially broken state, you can place a block on top of it, and it doesn't actually go on top. It actually replaces that block, and it trades it for what's already there. So you see the dirt block went into my pack, and the wood block went onto the floor. So let's take a look at the ability bar real quick. You can see this first ability is left click. Second ability, you press A. And I have tooltips now too. So you can see this one digs dirt, and then this one you thrust it at something, and it can either hit an enemy or a dirt block. And the same goes for the axe, well, except the axe swings instead of thrusts. So let's take a look at pathing now and how it's changed, because they definitely had to make some changes to account for elevation. So before, when you tried to path to an unpathable area, the character just wouldn't do anything. Now he can plan partial paths, so he tries to pick whatever the closest point to where you're trying to go is. I cleaned up a lot of stuff in the pathing algorithm. You also see these little stitches here, which show which regions are actually connected to each other. So if I put a dirt block right here, you can see now I can path up here because there's regions that connect to get up to where I'm going. So I wanted to take a look real quick at how the tools were made. This is the sprite artist that I created. And over here are the different cells. The shovel and the shovel's dirt are just visitor cells that are not actually owned by the player sprite. They're just here so we can see how they look with the player. And you can turn those on or off in this drawing page here. You can look at the various layers that make up the different cells. The rigging is for setting collision and for projectile spawn points and the default facing direction. And then over here in animation, you can pick the different animations and the different keyframes that are associated with each one. And whenever you play an animation, it plays all of them that have the same prefix. So if I play, dig, shovel, it's going to play all the dig animations at once. And this way I was able to really rapidly prototype what the animation looked like. Because again, I'm not drawing every frame in the animation. I'm just specifying, different offsets and rotations and that kind of thing. And the sprite artist here let me visually see what it looks like. And then all the same code that makes the sprite artist work is then reused directly in the game. So I can be sure that if it looks one way in the sprite artist, that's going to look the exact same way in the main game. So this video we looked at some new block types, some new types of tools. Next video we're going to be doing lighting and vision and how it's affected by elevation. I'm also going to be doing roofing and doors, and this pry bar tool is going to be used for removing roof tiles. And in a video after that, we'll probably do crafting, maybe some hunting, maybe some combat, who knows. And on a final note, I really want to do game development, independent game development full time. Um, if you'd like to help me get this first game out the door, I set up a Patreon account. There's a link in the description. And thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.